Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Boss Economics World, the only show brave enough to call out the economic clown show unfolding before our very eyes. Buckle up, folks, because today we're diving headfirst into the latest chapter of the Trump tariff tantrum, a masterclass in economic self-sabotage that's got the whole world scratching its head, wallets shrinking, and markets tanking faster than a lead balloon. And guess who's footing the bill? That's right, you, me, and every hard-working taxpayer caught in this government-engineered dumpster fire. But hey, don't take my word for it. Let's break down the madness, layer by layer, from the surface-level chaos to the deep, dark economic abyss beneath. Grab your popcorn, because this is gonna get spicy. Alright, let's set the stage. President Donald Trump, the self-proclaimed tariff man, has made good on his threats to slap 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, while doubling down on China with a 20% levy. We're talking about $1.5 trillion in annual imports getting hit with the economic equivalent of a sledgehammer. And what's the justification? Oh, you know, the usual, protecting American jobs, fixing trade imbalances, and, of course, the classic political theater of blaming foreigners for everything from fentanyl to inflation. But here's the kicker, folks, this isn't just a trade spat. This is a full-blown, government-orchestrated economic train wreck, and the fallout is already hitting your wallet harder than a Black Friday sale at a dollar store. Let's start with the obvious, the markets are freaking out. Equities across Asia and Europe. Down the drain. U.S. futures. Flat as a pancake, which is Wall Street's polite way of saying, we're terrified, but we're too proud to admit it. Treasury yields. They've cratered to their lowest in 4 months, and oil prices? Down to a 3-month low. Why? Because markets hate uncertainty, and Trump's tariff roulette is the textbook definition of economic chaos. Investors are running for the hills, and who can blame them? When the White House treats global trade like a reality TV show, the only winners are the hedge funds shorting the market. And let's not forget the ripple effects. According to the Budget Lab at Yale, these tariffs have pushed American import levies to their highest average level since 1943. That's right, folks, we're back to World War II-era protectionism, but without the whole, saving the world from fascism part. The result? An estimated $2,000 in additional costs for the average U.S. household, courtesy of higher prices on everything from cars to avocados. Oh, and don't forget the retaliation. Canada's hitting back with $107 billion in levies on U.S. goods, China's targeting Trump's voter base with tariffs on soybeans and beef, and Mexico's playing the waiting game, but you can bet they're sharpening their economic knives as we speak. This isn't a trade war, folks, it's a trade apocalypse. But let's dig deeper, because the real story isn't just the market mayhem, it's the economic domino effect that's gonna kneecap growth, jobs, and your savings. First up, let's talk about the supply chain carnage. Take the auto sector, for example. The US, Canada, and Mexico have spent decades building a tightly integrated supply chain, where parts crisscross borders multiple times before a car rolls off the assembly line. According to the Center for Automotive Research, a 25% tariff on Canadian and Mexican imports could increase the cost of a new car in the US by up to $1,800. That's not protecting American jobs, that's pricing American consumers out of the market and handing a competitive edge to foreign automakers who don't rely on North American supply chains. Brilliant strategy, right? And it's not just cars. The Peterson Institute for International Economics estimates that if these tariffs persist, U.S. GDP growth could slow by as much as 0.8% annually. That might not sound like much, but when you're already teetering on the edge of a recession, hello, inverted yield curve in 2023, that's the difference between growth and a full-blown downturn. Oh, and let's not forget inflation, the gift that keeps on giving. The Federal Reserve's own research shows that tariffs on Chinese goods during Trump's first term added 0.2 percentage points to core inflation. Now, with tariffs twice as high and covering 3 times as many goods, we're looking at a potential inflation spike of 0.5% or more, just as the Fed is trying to tame price growth. Great timing, Mr. President. But wait, there's more. Remember how Trump promised these tariffs would bring in billions to fund tax cuts and infrastructure? Yeah, about that. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that tariffs might generate $70 billion in annual revenue, which sounds impressive until you realize that's a drop in the bucket compared to the $1.5 trillion cost of his proposed tax cut package. And that's assuming other countries don't retaliate, which, spoiler alert, they already are. So, instead of a revenue windfall, we're getting higher prices, slower growth, and a ballooning deficit. It's almost as if the government has no idea how economics works, but hey, I'm sure they'll figure it out after the next election, right? Now, let's get to the heart of the matter. The government's fingerprints are all over this economic disaster. Trump's tariffs aren't just bad policy, they're a textbook example of government overreach, incompetence, and political posturing at the expense of everyday Americans. First off, the justification for these tariffs is flimsy at best. The White House claims it's all about national security, pointing to issues like undocumented migration and fentanyl trafficking. Really? Because last time I checked, tariffs don't build walls or stop drug cartels, they just make your groceries more expensive. According to the U.S. Trade Representative's own data, trade with Canada and Mexico supports 12 million American jobs, many of them in manufacturing and agriculture. But sure, let's tank those industries to score political points. Genius. And don't even get me started on the hypocrisy. Trump's railing against unfair trade practices, but let's talk about the real imbalance here, the government's addiction to deficit spending. The U.S. national debt just hit $36 trillion in 2024, according to the Treasury Department, and the deficit is on track to exceed $1.9 trillion this year, per the CBO. But instead of addressing that mess, the administration is busy slapping tariffs on our closest allies, driving up costs, and pretending it's all part of some grand economic strategy. Newsflash, folks, this isn't strategy, it's economic vandalism, and we're the ones paying for the cleanup. Oh, and let's not forget the collateral damage. Small businesses, already battered by inflation and supply chain disruptions, are getting crushed by these tariffs. The National Federation of Independent Business reports that 68% of small business owners say rising input costs are their biggest challenge in 2024. Now, with tariffs jacking up the price of everything from steel to semiconductors, those businesses are facing a choice: pass the costs on to consumers and risk losing sales, or eat the losses and risk going under. Meanwhile, corporate giants with offshore supply chains are laughing all the way to the bank. So much for America first, huh? But here's where it gets really ugly, folks. These tariffs aren't just America's problem, they're the world's problem. The European Commission is already sounding the alarm, warning that Trump's tariffs threaten deeply integrated supply chains, investment flows, and economic stability across the Atlantic. And they're not wrong. According to the International Monetary Fund, global trade growth is projected to slow to 3.1% in 2025, down from 5.6% pre-COVID, thanks in part to rising protectionism. But hey, who needs a healthy global economy when you've got political talking points to sell, right? And let's talk about China, because this is where the hypocrisy hits peak levels. Trump's tariffs are supposed to punish China, but guess who's really feeling the pain? American farmers, that's who. China's retaliatory tariffs on U.S. agricultural goods, like soybeans, beef, and fruits, are hitting Trump's voter base right where it hurts. The American Farm Bureau Federation estimates that U.S. farm exports to China have already dropped by $27 billion since the trade war began in 2018, and these new tariffs could double that loss. But don't worry, I'm sure a few photo ops with struggling farmers will fix everything. So, where does this leave us, folks? In a world where the government's economic playbook reads like a bad reality TV script, and the only winners are the spin doctors and corporate cronies who thrive on chaos. But here's the thing, we don't have to sit back and take it. You, the hardworking taxpayers, the small business owners, the farmers, the professionals watching this show, you have a voice. Demand accountability. Demand policies that actually grow the economy, not tank it for political theater. And for my finance pros out there, it's time to get loud, call out the nonsense, crunch the numbers, and show the world what's really at stake. Because if there's one thing Boss Economics World has taught us, it's this: governments don't fix economic problems, they create them. And until we start holding them accountable, we'll just keep getting served the same old economic garbage, wrapped in a shiny new tariff package. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and remember, the only thing more inflated than the deficit is the ego of the politicians running this circus. See you next time.